This house was once my symphony. Every creaking floorboard, every patch of sunlight on the kitchen tiles, held the echoes of laughter, music, and the quiet love my husband and I built over 57 years. My name is Margaret Maggie Hale, and I've lived my entire life in Maplewood, Vermont, in the old cedarwood home that my husband Thomas and I built with our own hands, back when this town was just farmland and dusty roads. He promised me this house would be my forever sanctuary. I never imagined it would one day become my prison. For decades, I ran a small homemade pie and preserves kitchen from the back of this house. Apple butter, peach jam, berry pies that people drove in from neighboring towns to buy. Folks around here called me Miss Maggie's magic hands. Weddings, church gatherings, county fairs. I catered them all. This home and that kitchen weren't just businesses. They were my heartbeat. Then Thomas died. Just like that, one crisp autumn morning on the porch with coffee in hand, his heart stopped. Suddenly the house felt too big, the silence too loud. But I kept going, kneaded dough, stirred jam, smiled for customers. What else could I do? My 3 children, Ethan, the eldest, Clara, sharp and calculating, and my youngest, Daniel, always soft-spoken, promised they'd take care of me. But promises can turn to poison. The land around Maplewood became valuable. Developers started circling our property like vultures. My children began visiting more, not with hugs or help, but with papers, suggestions, and insistent voices. Mom, this house is too much for you alone. You should sell it and move to assisted living. Clara found a lovely one. Think of how much this land is worth, Mom. At first, I smiled politely and said no. Then things changed. My recipe books went missing. My medication was moved. Important papers disappeared and reappeared in the wrong drawers. My old friends told me my children had been saying I was forgetful, that I wasn't safe alone anymore. One July afternoon, I was mixing pie dough in my kitchen when I heard them, through the open window, standing on the porch, whispering. Ethan's voice. She'll never sign. We need another plan. Clara, if she won't go willingly, she'll go one way or another. And then Daniel, the one I trusted the most, said the words that turned my blood to ice. People her age fade away all the time. No one would question it. I stood there, hands covered in flour, heart pounding like thunder. My own children, planning to erase me. That night, with a trembling voice, I confronted them. I expected denial, shame, tears. Instead, Ethan smirked. Clara squeezed my hands gently and said, "You're tired, Mom. Rest. Let us handle things." Only Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. I should have locked my door. I should have run. But instead I drank the tea Clara brought me. Warm. Sweet. Slightly bitter. And then the world went dark. But when I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my bedroom. I was somewhere cold, damp, somewhere beneath my own home. And that was only the beginning of the nightmare. When I opened my eyes, the world was nothing but shadows and stone. My head throbbed, my tongue felt heavy, and the cold from the concrete floor seeped into my bones. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I smelled it. Damp walls, rusted metal, and the faint mustiness of old wood. I pushed myself upright slowly, leaning against a rock-cold wall. The weak light of a single bulb flickered above me. I was in the basement of my own home. I was in the basement of my own home. A place we rarely used anymore. Just old shelves, broken furniture, forgotten storage trunks, and a small bathroom with a rust-stained sink and cracked mirror. But the door at the top of the stairs was shut, locked from the outside. They had done it. My children had locked me away like some unwanted memory. I shouted their names. Ethan, Clara, Daniel. My voice echoing off stone. No answer. I pounded on the door until my hands burned. Still, silence. Hours passed. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The lock clicked, but the door only opened a crack. Ethan's face appeared in the sliver of light. He didn't look angry. He looked calm. Too calm. "You'll stay down here for a while," he said. "It's easier this way. Sign the house over and we'll move you somewhere safe." My voice trembled. "You're my son." He didn't flinch. "This land is worth a fortune. You're not thinking clearly anymore. Clara and I will take care of everything." "And if I don't?" I whispered. He paused. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Well, people your age don't last long without proper care." He didn't flinch. "This land is worth a fortune. You're not thinking clearly anymore. Clara and I will take care of everything." "And if I don't?" I whispered. He paused. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Well, people your age don't last long without proper care." He slid a bottle of water inside. No food. Then the door slammed shut. Hours turned to night. I screamed until my throat burned. I cried until no more tears would come. But crying doesn't open locked doors. By the second day, hunger had become a sharp animal, chewing on the inside of my belly. Thirst was worse. The water from the sink dripped rust-tasting, but I drank it anyway. I had to. On the third day, footsteps came again. This time, Clara. She didn't even open the door. "Mom," she called sweetly. "Please don't make this harder. We're not trying to hurt you. Just cooperate. Sign the papers and you can come out." "You drugged me," I rasped. A pause. Then, softly, "You left us no choice." And then she was gone. Daniel never came. But at night I heard them upstairs. Footsteps, laughter, the clinking of glasses. They were celebrating my disappearance. The pain in my body worsened. My stomach cramped. My legs shook when I stood. Sleep brought no peace, only fevered dreams. Thomas calling my name, my mother humming lullabies, the smell of fresh pies I'd never bake again. On the fourth day, something snapped inside me. Not in fear, in resolve. If I was going to die here, I would die fighting. Not as a forgotten ghost beneath my own home, but as Margaret Hale, wife of Thomas Hale, mother of 3, and builder of everything they wanted to steal. There had to be another way out, another door, another chance. I scanned the basement walls with trembling hands, searching for something, anything, that could lead me back to the light. And that was when my fingers brushed against something strange. Brick, not stone. And behind it, a hollow space. If that bricked wall was what I thought it was, then I had just found a forgotten doorway, or my last hope of ever escaping alive. The wall was different from the rest, colder, smoother, and made of old mortar-packed bricks instead of raw stone. I pressed my ear against it and heard nothing but silence. Still something inside me whispered, "This isn't just a wall. This was once a doorway." Long before we renovated the house, Thomas had built a small root cellar entrance that led to the backyard. Decades ago, when we expanded the kitchen, we sealed it with bricks and forgot about it. But the house had remembered. And now, so had I. I needed something to dig with. My hands were too weak, my nails already broken and bloodied from pounding on the basement door. Searching through old boxes, I found an iron candle holder, rusted but sturdy. It would do. That night, While the house above me filled with laughter and clinking glasses, I knelt at the old brick doorway and began scraping the mortar. Every scrape sent lightning pain up my arms, but pain meant I was alive. Pain meant I could still fight. The first brick came loose just before dawn. The sound was small, barely a whisper, but to me, it was thunder. I pried it out with trembling hands, dust and grit covering my fingers. Behind it, darkness, air, a small pocket of space. Hope. I worked through the morning and into the afternoon, stopping only to sip rusty water from the sink. My body was weak, 8 days with no food. My stomach no longer growled. It just ached quietly, like it had given up. I hadn't. On the 9th day, I heard them again. Upstairs, Ethan. She should be gone by now. How is she still holding on? Clara. Old people are stubborn. 2 more days, and it's over. Daniel's voice quiet, shaking. What if someone finds out? Ethan scoffed. Who? She has no one left. He was wrong. The house remembered me. The soil, the beams, the recipes written in the margins of cookbooks. Everything in this home carried my fingerprints, and I would not let it become their prize. That night I kept working. My fingertips split, my vision blurred, and when I could no longer stand, I crawled. Another brick, then another, and then air. Cold, fresh, real air. I could see a sliver of the night sky on the other side, but I was too weak to push through. My body trembled uncontrollably. My breaths came short and ragged. Just 1 more brick, Maggie, I told myself. 1 more. For Thomas. For every loaf of bread, every jar of jam, every inch of this house you built. I pushed. The brick cracked free. The gap was big enough. Barely. With the last of my strength, I dragged my thin body through the jagged opening. My dress tore. My skin scraped against brick. My arms shook violently. And then, cool grass, open sky. The wind touched my face for the first time in 10 days. I lay there silently, staring up at the stars, tears tracing down my dirt-streaked cheeks. I wanted to stay there forever, but I wasn't done. Justice hadn't been served. Not yet. I didn't escape to run. I escaped to return. And by morning my children would sit at my table for one final dinner they would never forget. The night air was cold against my skin, but I had never felt something so beautifully alive. My body ached, weak from starvation and exhaustion, yet the fire in my chest burned brighter than ever. Slowly I crawled toward the small outbuilding behind the house, the place everyone in Maplewood called Maggie's Kitchen. It wasn't just where I made pies and preserves. It was where my life had been kneaded, stirred, baked into existence. I reached the back door and pulled the fern pot aside. Beneath it, just as I had left it years before, lay a small silver key wrapped in wax paper. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door. The moment I stepped inside, I almost crumpled to the floor. It smelled like sugar and cinnamon, like home. The copper pots on the wall gleamed faintly under the small lamp I turned on. The shelves lined with jars of peach jam, blackberry preserves, flour, spices. It was just as I left it, untouched, untainted by them. I drank water from the clean kitchen tap. Then, slowly, carefully, I ate a handful of walnuts from a jar. My stomach screamed, but I knew better than to eat too quickly. My hands still shook as I picked up the landline phone on the counter. One number was ingrained in my memory more than any recipe. Walter. My voice cracked. It's Maggie. On the other end, silence. Then a choked gasp. Maggie? My God! Where have you? Your children said you'd gone to your sister's. I don't have a sister, I whispered. Another silence. Then his voice hardened. "Tell me everything." And I did. I told my lawyer and oldest friend how my own children locked me in the basement, how they waited for me to die, and how I crawled through bricks and dirt to escape. Walter's voice was shaky with anger and disbelief. "Maggie, I'm calling Sheriff Dawson right now. You need to get out of that house. They're dangerous." "No," I said, my voice suddenly steady. "I'm not leaving." He hesitated. "Maggie, they took everything from me. My home, my dignity, my trust. I want them to see me alive with their own eyes before justice takes them away." Walter exhaled. "Then I'll make sure law enforcement is watching. But Maggie, be careful." I hung up the phone and stood in the center of my kitchen. The plan had formed in my mind during those long, starving nights in the basement. I would make them dinner. One last family meal. Not to kill them. No, I wasn't like them. But to show them I survived, to make them feel even a fraction of the fear, humiliation, and helplessness they forced on me. I lit the old stove. I pulled out flour, eggs, butter, herbs, and from a locked drawer, something special, a powdered medicinal root used in old Appalachian remedies, safe but guaranteed to bring violent stomach cramps and regret. Not poison, just consequence. As the night slipped into dawn, I cooked. The aroma of rosemary roast and sweet cornbread filled the kitchen. By sunrise, my table was set. My hands still shook. But my heart? Calm. Dead calm. Because tonight, they would sit across from me again, and I would serve them truth. Dish by dish. But as I carried the tray toward the house, pale thin and very much alive, none of them were prepared for the woman stepping through that doorway. The sun was setting when I walked back into my house. My hair was tangled, my face pale, clothes torn and dusty. Yet my steps were steady. I carried the heavy serving tray in both hands. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Ethan, Clara, and Daniel were in the dining room, laughing, wine glasses in hand. Then they saw me. The laughter died. Clara's glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. "Mom," she whispered, her face turning ghost-white. You're alive?" I said calmly. "Yes." "Disappointed?" Ethan stood, his jaw clenched. How? "You left a crack," I replied. "In the wall, in your plan, in your hearts." Daniel's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Mom, I raised my hand. Sit." Maybe it was guilt, maybe shock. But they sat. I placed the tray on the table gently. The dining room smelled of rosemary, fresh bread, and warm peaches. I laid out their plates with care. Roast chicken, buttered carrots, cornbread, and peach preserves. Just like I used to when they were children. No one moved. "Eat," I said softly. Clara swallowed. "Is it safe?" I stared her straight in the eyes. "Safer than what you fed me." They began to eat, hesitantly. I did not sit. I stood at the head of the table just as Thomas used to. "You drugged me, locked me in my own basement, waited for me to die. My own children." Ethan slammed his fork down. "You wouldn't listen. You were ruining everything." I leaned forward, voice cold as winter. "This house is not a thing you inherit. It's a life you earn, and none of you have earned it." Their faces twisted. Shame, anger, fear. Then it began. The cramps, the discomfort, the sweating, not poison. Just truth mixed with consequence. Clara clutched her stomach. What did you—" "Nothing fatal," I said. "But it'll make you feel helpless, trapped, like I felt." Daniel was crying now. "Mom, please." I softened just for him. You heard them. You didn't stop them. Silence is a choice too. Their breaths grew rapid, their faces pale. And then, from the hallway, Sheriff Dawson stepped in. Behind him stood Walter, his cane in hand, eyes blazing with justice. The sheriff's voice was firm. Ethan, Clara Hale, you're under arrest for unlawful imprisonment, attempted inheritance fraud, and elder abuse. Handcuffs clicked. Ethan struggled. Clara screamed. Daniel just sobbed into his hands. As they were led away, Clara turned to me, eyes wild. How could you do this to your own children? I held her gaze. You did it first. Silence fell. The officers left. The house was quiet again. Painfully quiet. I walked to the head of the table and sat in Thomas's old chair. The plates were still warm. The candles flickered gently. My hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from release. For the first time in a long time, I breathed deep, free. This house, the one they tried to turn into my tomb, was mine again, not just wood and walls, but memory and survival. They thought they buried me in the dark, but they only planted me, and I rose. Just say the word. I'm ready. Thank you for listening to my story. Before you go, like, share, and subscribe. It means more than you know.